We've got a submission here from cyclonend, who's given me log, video, and a dump. And also, thank you, you gave me a sync time of 11.53. I really appreciate that. That does make my life a little easier. You say the quad feels good, but you get drift at full throttle. And of course, we'll look at the rest of your tune as well. And the first thing I'll do, as I always do, is I'll look at your gyros and I'll zoom all the way out to 10%. And we will assess the thickness of the lines to get a sense of the overall noise level of the copter. And I often say that with Betaflight filtering the way it is, that's almost a formality that we do this. But it's a good thing that it is a formality, because something's going on here. Notice that even before you throttle up, we still are getting your yaw trace at least is relatively thick. I'm not going to break it out. But your yaw trace is relatively thick. Sometimes these lines are thin. And then if we get into this part of the flight, it's kind of all over the place. It's not, if you go back to some of the previous videos I've done, these ultra pencil thin lines. So, something's going on here, and my hunch is it has to do with your tune. Let's dig into it, and we'll find out. I'm going to start by looking at your roll axis. Got to start somewhere. And the roll axis is oftentimes the more active of the three, just because that, pardon me, because of the way the mass is distributed on the copter. So let's go to the start of the log. And by the way, let me just let you guys watch a second of this video, because cyclonend definitely gave us something to work with here. I'll just play the video forward. Okay, so we got a roll, and we got a roll, and we got a flip, and we got a, okay. So yeah, we got a lot to work with there. But more fundamentally, so here, as the motor starts spinning, these harmonics, when the motors are low, don't ever pay any attention to them. They're nothing. As soon as you start to throttle up, stuff comes alive. Notice that you're throttled, you're at 1760, and we're immediately seeing some oscillation on the P term. Now, is that a problem? I don't think this is to a level like it's like a crazy level where I would call it a problem, but in some of the other traces I've looked at, if you guys are dutifully watching every single video I post, as I know you are, I say, oh, your P term doesn't look like it's very active. It's not doing a lot, even at full throttle. It's just kind of loping along. Well, here's the counterexample, right? This is the tire squealing, right? We see this is definite oscillation. Look at the regularity in the timing. Look at the spacing from peak to peak, right? That regularity is a function of the physical characteristics of the copter coming out. It's not a function necessarily of the PID. Well, it is, but, you know, this regularity here is not something that's happening as a result of an external cause. It's a result of the copter sort of running up against its limits, and that this timing is going to be consistent. Okay, so this is definitely P-term oscillation. Notice that the D-term is not freaking out here. P-term is getting busy, but D-term's not freaking out. So we're okay there. So that, I'm not going to call that a problem, but I am going to say I'm not going to tell you to turn your P gains up. Okay, I'm not going to tell you to turn them up. That's for sure. All right. Oh, now look at this. Now this. Oh, this, I don't like this at all. I don't even know what is going on here. I don't even know. Why didn't it? So your throttle is high, but why didn't it do it over here? Right? Your throttle was high here too. What are you doing? Let's play this forward at 50% speed. And let's see what you're doing. So there, all right, let's watch it again. What's different about that? I have no idea. Nothing seems different. And yet, as you hold, I mean, maybe it's that you sort of punched the throttle here, and you were also dropping it. I don't know, as you entered your roll. I don't really know why this one this is fine. But this I don't like. I don't like at all. This is not useful. This is not the PID loop being useful and making the copter fly good. This is the PID loop just kind of vomiting all over your motors. Okay, and somehow out of all of this vomit, your copter still flies great, right? But it's not ideal. So what can you do about this? it feels to me, like the thing to do here is to lower D. It gets a little bit of a chicken and the egg question when you've got a situation like this. Is the D term flipping out and driving the P term around, or vice versa? So I think the thing to do is to lower D and then see if the P term still keeps flipping out, you see? So the D term, once you lower, you're not going to lower P because that'll make your copter fly terrible. And then maybe you'll bring D back up again. You could go it the other way, I suppose, if you wanted to. You could lower P, and maybe when P settles down, D will settle down as well. But I think my approach would be to take D back down again and jam the throttle a few times and see if you get this P term oscillation. And if so, then it's definitely that P is too high. It's hard because there's an interplay between P and D, so they need to kind of be in balance. So there, something is excessive here. It's either too much P or too much D. If I covered all my bases, I think I've covered all the bases here. Let's see. Is this yours? Yeah, this is yours. You've got a 9 on pitch and a 9 on roll. Yeah, that's not very high. Okay, so it's probably P then. So let's take your roll P down to 0.85 maybe. That may be too much. You may not need much, but let's say 0.85. And then maybe fiddle with it a little from there. It's going to be tricky, of course, because you can't do that in the configurator. And that's what you get for using LuxFloat. That's your punishment for using LuxFloat, sorry. You have to either use the command line to put that in, or you have to use the GUI. Or maybe you've got one of the custom configurators that allows you to do more precision. Because I think in the default one, you could put 0.8 or 0.9, but you couldn't put 0.85. So, yeah, let's keep looking, but I think I'm going to tell you that yeah. It's just hard for me to imagine with a D gain of 9 that this kind of oscillation is being caused by the D term and not the P term. Whereas either that, okay, I'm going to throw another hypothesis at you. What the heck, right? We'll see if it sticks. You got a vibration problem. Again, this is my other hypothesis. You got a vibration problem. Your D gain is actually fine. Your P gain is actually fine. But when you hit that throttle point around 1700, you get a harmonic or something, and something starts vibrating, and the D term amplifies it. Okay, so change all your props and check your motors for vibration. And I have a video on my YouTube channel on how to check your motors for vibration. Because it's funny, because it's only when you're jamming the throttle like this that this comes out. And it feels like it's excess D gain, but the rest of the time, everything looks fine. And even your P term doesn't look excessive most of the time. So it makes me wonder if you have an actual mechanical noise issue, either a prop or motor. Change all your props. Even if they're new props, change them, because sometimes a prop will come from the factory misbalanced, and it'll be a problem. You'll be like, I don't know what my problem is. I have new props. I've never crashed them. Anyway. Okay, that's what I have to say about that. Let's go look at your pitch axis. Yeah. Well, you haven't got a lot of... See, look at the difference. Your D term here is not doing anything. And the gain is the same. And yes, the weight distribution is different on pitch, so the pitch axis is more damped. But your D term is just not doing anything. It's not your tune. It's got to be something mechanical. It just doesn't feel like your tune alone would explain why you're getting that crazy oscillation on roll. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's probably something mechanical. Is your board tight? Are your screws tight? Look, here at high throttle, just nothing going on here. Right? You could even raise the P gain here. I would raise the P gain here. Yeah, totally. Because, and I should tell you why. Because look, here you are at max throttle, you're flying around, and look, you don't see any oscillations. No hard oscillations, barely any magnitude. Right? What's the magnitude of your P term here? At the peak, let's find a peak. Here's a peak. What's the magnitude of your P term on pitch? 8. 8. You see, that's nothing. That's nothing. It's barely doing anything. So, I mean, fine. If you, I mean, obviously fly's good. You have no problem with you're doing all kinds of crazy shit with it, right? But you could afford to raise it. All right. And you could probably raise D as well, but figure out what's going on with roll first. Now, if you've got a vibration issue, I'm terrified to even look at yaw, because yaw is usually the worst. Let's find out. Well, fortunately, your D gain is so low on yaw that the D term is not amplifying any noise, but let's find a high throttle point. Ah, look at that. Oh, that's magnitude is off the chart there, right? Well, it's not off the chart literally. So it's normal to see the yaw trace being pretty active because the vibrations there are often vibrations there. But again, this feels like a little too much to me. So, yeah, that's too much. So I think you should figure out what your vibration issue is. And if you must tune around this, reduce D. Reduce D. Because the P term will not respond to vibration as aggressively as D. So unfortunately, you're going to need to bring D down. And since D is only at 9, it's not a lot lower you can go. You may need to reduce P as well. Or just keep flying it the way it is. Because, man, if you watch the high-def video, it's hard to tell that there's anything to nitpick here. But I think there's definitely, it could be flying smoother, and it could be flying a little bit more locked in if you were able to solve that issue. What about drift? Oh, I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to go look for drift at high throttle. Okay. But if there's, by the way, I'm going to hedge my bet. If there's drift at high throttle, then my guess is that it has to do with that vibration. That vibration is making your PID loop worse at doing its job. It's getting all jumbled up and confused, and then it's drifting. So you said to me, well, I think I have drift at high throttle. And I said, well, whenever there's high throttle, your PID loop is kind of vomiting all over the place. Now, I don't know how those two things are related, but, you know, they're probably related, right? All right. Let me pause the video and see if I can see anything. All right, well, I was looking for drift at high throttle, and I played this back at 50% speed, and I take it back. I take back what I said about, oh, if it flies good, don't fix it. Look at the video here as I play it back at 50% speed. Hang on. Do you see it skittering all over the place? It's just skittering all over the place, like a, I don't know, like what? Look at it. Look at it jittering. No, you got to fix this. You got to fix this. Sorry, I take it back. I do want to point out to you guys, do you see? I'm going to play it again, and I hope, if you can't see it on my screen recording, go back to the original video and find it, and play it at slow speed. I want you to look at this kind of skittering almost. Okay, that's what excess noise or excess D-gain looks like. One thing it can look like. It's not a hard oscillation like a P-term oscillation would be. It's this kind of random skittering and jittering. And also it looks like it's mostly on the yaw axis, but I think that's a little hard to tell because there's so much going on here. It feels to me like that's D-term noise though. All right, it could be wrong. It could be the P-term on the yaw axis pushing around, but it doesn't feel that way to me. It's hard to tell because the yaw axis has such low authority that the P-term oscillations often don't look like hard oscillations. But yeah, now since I can see it in your high def camera, I'm sure you could feel it when you're flying. Yeah, you got to work on this and fix it. All right. Hope that was helpful. Happy flying.